It's approximately 9 o'clock. We'll now call to order the Board of Adjustments and Appeals for Oldham County. We're now in session. Today, we have listed on our docket 5 cases. Actually, the first case is tabled OC-19-015 and will continue to be tabled till next month. Just for procedures, if we could, put that up there on there. I want to remind everyone before we get started that if you have cell phones, please put those on vibrate. If you need to take a phone call, please excuse yourself from the courtroom. Members, if you could make sure your mics are on, that would be appreciated. On your screen is the procedures we'll be using for today's cases. First, we'll go through the swearing in of staff as soon as I go through this. We will then do an introduction of the application by our board secretary, Mike Riley. We will then have the staff come up and do a report. After that, we'll do questions from the board to the staff. Then after that, the applicant will come forward. They'll have 20 minutes to present their case. If we need longer, we can do, there are procedures to extend if needed. Then the board will then do questions of the applicant. The next step would be anyone speaking in favor of the applicant. It has a combined amount of 10 minutes for that. Board members will then also ask questions of anyone presenting there if there are questions. Then we will take testimony from anyone speaking in opposition to the application. They'll have up to 20 minutes in total as well, and then more questions by the board if needed. After those steps, we will go through a rebuttal process where the applicant will have 5 minutes to say anything they wish to say to summarize their case. And then there will be a rebuttal by the opposition for 5 minutes after that. Then we go to final statements, first by the opposition, then by the applicant. I must emphasize in this that at this point you're summarizing, you're not introducing new testimony at this point in time. And then we'll do any final questioning by the board. At that point, we'll close the floor for discussion. So then the board will have a time to discuss what's happening. We will accept a motion to approve or deny, and then we'll go to a final decision and take a vote. Any questions on the procedures? All right, so for today, I want to introduce everyone that's going to be involved from up here and from our staff. I will start on my left, your right. If you guys could just say good morning or something so that the camera will get you on tape, I would appreciate it. To my left is Mike Riley. He is a member. Travis Combs is our attorney. My name is Rob Houchins. Shelley Nunn is our administrative assistant. Ron Funk is a member.
Good morning.
Tom Clemens is a member.
Good morning.
The staff present today includes Jim Urban, our director, Amy Alvey, our assistant director, and Tom I always say that wrong, McIntyre, our senior planner. So if we could, let's go to the first case. Mr. Riley, if you could read the docket. Oh,
Docket.
swear him in. Yeah, see.
You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Now, Mike.
Now
See,
I'm ready.
that's my first mess up in running the meeting.
And we
so
rehearsed
tab,
this.
so you know.
keeping tab, yeah. We'll check little marks. Okay.
You ready for me?
So if I mess up again, you get to somebody else gets to take over.
Mr. Chairman, are you ready for me?
I'm ready, Mike.
Okay, all
Go
right.
ahead.
Docket OC-19-016. An application has been filed requesting a side yard setback variance for a proposed structure located at 1522 Riverside Drive, Prospect.
Give me just a second. It looks like it's trying to do in the middle of a software update. Hopefully not. All right. Good morning. Amy Alvey with the Oldham County Planning and Development Services, as Mr. Riley just stated. This is an application requesting a side yard setback for a proposed addition on property located at 1522 Riverside Drive in Prospect. The property is zoned CO1 Conservation Residential and is approximately 0.229 acres. Excuse me. This is the aerial view of the property outlined in red. This shows the existing zoning. This is a area view that shows the structures and driveways, and as we always state, our lines on our GIS are not survey quality. They are just an overlay of the existing subdivision plat. So you'll see here that this should probably actually be shifted orientation to the north. Site history: on April 18th of 2019, the Oldham County Board of Adjustments approved a side yard setback variance of 8.9 feet, allowing the house to be 6.1 feet from the left property line. That was docket OC 19011. The home is currently being elevated as part of a FEMA grant to raise the structures out of the flood hazard areas. The applicant is requesting a side yard setback variance for proposed addition on that. The home is currently 8.1 feet from the property line. The owner would like to enclose the exterior, sorry, that's not right. It's the deck, which would be approximately, wait a minute. Yes, okay, here we go. Sorry. During the hearing, the review of the plans, it was found that the deck was not calculated into the right side setback to be shown on the applicant's drawing. An additional variance was going to be required. So if you recall, we granted a variance on the left side, but the plan showed the existing or a proposed deck on the right side, and that was not included in their setback calculation, so that now they're back getting a variance for the right side. The existing home on the right side is 10.8 feet from the right side property line and is considered a legal non-conforming structure. The home and lots were created prior to the implementation of our zoning regulations. So with the addition of the elevated deck, the structure will be approximately 6.9 feet from the right property line. So this is the plans and the plot plan that was submitted with the application. You'll see here highlighted in purple, this is the existing structure. The hashed area is the deck, which will be from the corner of the house to the property line is 10.86 feet. And then once they put the addition of the deck on there, it becomes 6.9. The applicant stated that the deck would be used as an emergency exit in the event the stairwell is blocked or unusable during an emergency, and that comes from the applicant's justification statement. This is the elevations that were submitted with the application. So this is the area here that we're speaking of. This is the rear view. So if you're behind the house, we'll call it the riverside, looking back towards the street. This is the area again. This is the applicant's property. So again, this structure will be elevated to be raised out of the flood, 100-year flood zone. So this is the area here that we're speaking of, the right side yard. This is the north view on Riverside Drive. This is the north adjoining property owner. So this is the property to the right of the existing home. This is the east adjoining, so this is across the street. This is the south view, the south adjoining property owner. On the south side, this is the left side yard. We did receive staff did receive a letter from the adjoining property owner to the right that would be affected by this variance most directly. That just says, I'm okay with the McFarland's requested property variance to add decking over the driveway. And again, that came from this property owner here. So in summary, the applicant is requesting a side yard setback variance. The required side yard is 15 feet. The proposed side yard is 6.9 feet. Therefore, they are requesting a variance of 8.1 feet. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any
On
questions?
a deja vu, we've kind of seen this before, 2 months ago.
Seeing no questions, I think we'll move on to the applicant. The applicant come forward, be sworn in, and present their, what they're asking for.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Name and address, please.
James C. McFarland, 1522 Riverside Drive.
James, what are you trying to do?
We're elevating the house with the help of FEMA, and we were looking to didn't know that we needed the variance for that. It's basically a walkway, and it's just to have another way out of the house in case of a fire or some kind of emergency from being the first floor level being 18 feet up off the ground. So just looking for another way out. It's not going to be used for entertainment or anything like that. It's just for basically another way out, and there'll be a driveway in the front, so you can't hardly put stairs or anything out front.
Okay. So where are the stairs at on this?
The stairs that you would access that deck from would be on the riverside side of the house. Yeah, right there, coming down there on the right, if you're looking from the river facing the house. And there'll be another spiral staircase, it's not in that drawing, but coming off of that upper deck where the master bedroom is, coming down to that deck. Just trying to have multiple places of access to be able to get out.
Be able to get out in an emergency. All right. Questions by board members?
I have one. Do you have the upper level that you said will be the master bedroom? Is that being used as sleeping area now prior to raising the house up, or will that be added during a remodel?
That's the way it is existingly, but that's also the way it will be with the remodel.
And then I didn't notice in the images that Amy displayed, but is there a set of stairs now off that the riverside from that master bedroom space down to elevation or grade level?
Yes, there was. You gotta remember, the first floor living space now is on the ground.
Yes, sir.
It's gonna be 18 feet up, but there's a spiral staircase that comes down from that master bedroom now to the ground level.
Sure. And as
And that was the sole purpose of that deck. That deck up there was 5 by 10.
sure. And you're again, as this, to be clear, you say you're raising the home 18 feet. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first floor living space will be 18
Which
feet
then
up.
obviously, as you stated, it poses just egress and escape issues during emergencies.
Right.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Okay, so seeing that there's no one else to speak, is there anything else you'd like to say, sir? Okay. All right. So being that we went through the entire process, and any questions from the board to anyone? If not, we'll close the floor for any more testimony and have discussion among the board.
You know, we saw this case come up about another variance which was approved back in April. And a lot of testimony was given at that time, so nothing has changed since that time. So I have no problems whatsoever with this request.
I concur.
Yeah, I think why we're here, frankly, is because this simply got missed in the first application.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
so we wanted to make sure it was pointed out that we
Right.
needed to go back, and this is additional variance that we needed to take into account, which would have been more than what was in the original application. So we needed to put it back out for public comment, and so that's why we're here.
That's correct.
Okay? If no other comments, then I would be open to taking a motion.
I would like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve docket OC 19-016 for a side yard setback variance of 8.1 feet based on the evidence of the lot size, meeting FEMA guidelines to reduce damage in the future due to flooding in that area and because it will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. It will not alter the essential character of the surrounding area. It will not be a hazard or nuisance to the public. It will not allow unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations based on the previous testimony. Conditions of approval. The variance shall only apply to the application considered at the June 20, 2019 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Funk seconds the motion. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Application has been approved. All right. Mr. Riley, if you could read the next application, I would appreciate it.
Ready? Docket OC 19-017, an application has been filed requesting rear yard setback variances for a proposed addition located at 6904 Brown Court, Crestwood.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. My name is Tom McIntyre. I'm a senior planner here with Oldham County Planning and Development. An application has been filed requesting a rear yard setback variance for a proposed addition at 6904 Brown Court in Crestwood. The site is zoned R2. It is Lot 11 of Summerfield by the Lake subdivision and roughly 0.38 acres. Here's an aerial. The highlighted parcel in red, like Ms. Alvey had mentioned earlier, they're not survey grade, so it is a little bit tighter than what it is in reality, but it's more of a reference. All the properties that surround this particular subject property are all zoned R2. The required rear yard setback within the R2 is 25 feet. This graphic shows in blue the buildable area. The applicant currently has an existing wood deck, and said deck extends 10 feet into the rear yard. The applicant's proposed addition extends another 4 feet, totaling 14 feet there. Due to the house encompassing most of the buildable area, the applicant is requesting a rear yard setback variance of 14 feet. Here are some closer building plans. So here, this red line is the 25-foot setback line. The orange is the existing deck that extends 10 feet into said rear yard setback. Here, the green, shown here, is the proposed addition. Now, addition probably isn't the best word to use because they're basically repurposing the space. They're taking it from a deck and they're going to condition it. So you're changing the use of the space, which is the reason for the variance. Per the applicant's justification statement, the rear of the property faces west and without cover or shade, and this deck area will have very limited use. Adding cover to the existing deck will not harm public safety in any way. The proposed changes will enhance the visual appearance while helping to maintain and improve the essential character of the neighborhood. So, here we have a graphic of the proposed addition extending from the rear of the house. This area right here in yellow and orange, this is their existing rear yard. Like mentioned earlier, their house sits on the 25-foot setback line. So when you look at on an aerial without the parcel, you would see a fairly large backyard that is a different piece of property owned by the developer. So currently, this is their backyard right now. Here's a picture looking, I guess it would be north. And as you can see right here, the grass is neatly cut. That is essentially your property line. Here's a proposed rendering of the addition. So you have 10 feet that right there, additional 4 right here, meaning that area right there should be 11 feet. In addition to everything in the orange being their existing rear yard. Here's a view looking to the north. Your north adjoining property owner. Here's your east view. Your south view looking back up Brown Court, which is a dead end. And here's your west view. And like I mentioned earlier, your property line goes about right there. So this tree right here, that is on the adjoining, or that is what appears to be your rear yard, which actually, like I said, is owned by the developer. In summary, the applicant is requesting a rear yard setback variance of 14 feet, and the required rear yard is 25, and the requested rear yard is 11. Be happy to entertain any questions at this time.
In terms of the addition that we're talking about and it being conditioned space, right now it's open underneath. Does that mean we're building walls out from ground level all the way around and all the way up? Because the deck is elevated, it's not at ground level.
Correct. Correct. It would only be for the elevated portion.
So underneath will still be open.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Tom, could you pull the overview image back up, please, and show how the home in the lot is positioned next to the neighboring lot?
Sure.
That one right there? And then, so as we view this, the footprint of where a home could be built, although the lot is vacant, what would the left and right property line setbacks be for the home that would go on the proposed vacant lot?
So in the R2, if you don't have anything on the street side, you have to have 25 feet total between the two. So you could have 7 and then 18 on one side, or however you want to do it. But you'd have to be at least 5 feet off. So you could do 20 on one, or 7. You have to be 7, and then 18.
So it's reasonable to say that a home could be built 7 feet on the vacant lot, and then we're going to have 7 plus, so we're only going to have 18 feet of space potentially between structures.
There's a possibility for that, correct. I did speak with the neighbor down here. They did get some information. Apparently that lot has been there for years and years and years. Haven't really sold it. They don't think it's going to sell, but you know, that's just
That's speculation.
absolutely.
Is this neighborhood on sewers or septic?
I believe it's on sewers.
Okay. So when we're talking about whether the lot could sell, it has no bearing on a perk test or anything like that? Okay. Do you know the age of the home approximately, or should I ask
I'll
the
defer that
applicant?
to the applicant. I do not know.
Okay. And then, in those images that you're displaying, it appears as if the deck has some finished area underneath the deck as well, in that image right there.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been variance applications on this property previously? And is the existing deck in the area underneath in compliance with the regulations now?
I'm not aware of any variance application for that.
What is the requirement for a deck to be from a property line? I understand the structure's one. Does a deck fall into a different criteria?
Uh,
An open, unenclosed, unroofed deck or terrace can encroach 10 feet into the rear yard setback.
Okay.
So if the rear yard setback is 25 feet, a deck can be as close to 15 feet,
Okay.
but it has to be open, unenclosed, unroofed.
That's
So-
why I'm asking the question then, Amy,
Correct.
because I'm seeing what appears to be as enclosed space underneath the deck, and that's why I'm asking the question if there's been a variance or something filed or requested previously.
There was nothing that was in our records that there had been a variance for this
Okay.
enclosure.
So then that leads me, if I may then loop back around just for a moment then, Tom, please. So then, where's the deck presently from the deck to the property line in those images you were displaying a moment ago? Just so I can wrap my mind around where we're going on this. Sure, that one right there.
Currently from right here, because the enclosed porch under wood deck. There's a note right there. So you would, I would say, because right here is your 10 feet. So since it goes down and closer, maybe 8 feet.
14's for the thing. If you go back one more slide, I
Well,
think you're
14
gonna
is
see it.
from 14 is from the corner up here. So if we're talking from the enclosed porch under the wood deck, I would say,
Go back one slide.
yes, sir.
Sorry. I thought, there, right there. See, the existing is 10.
Existing deck extends 10 feet. So we're okay with the existing deck then,
Correct.
if I understand?
15 point.
Okay,
Correct.
right. So the area that's enclosed under that deck,
If the house, it appears the house, the rear of the home was put right on the rear property line.
Right.
So anything that would extend out underneath of that deck should have had a variance because it was
that's
enclosed.
the clarification I'm looking for.
Yes, sir.
So we have this question mark there because you said, my memory serves correctly, there was no application filed previously on this property.
Correct, that we're
Okay.
aware of.
All right,
Correct.
thank you for all the clarification. That was just some of the information I'm trying to wrap my mind around. Thank you.
So the logical, I think, follow-up to what you're saying is that we would be, because this is enclosed, this would need to have a variance as well. Amy or Jim or Tom?
Well, I believe. The whole thing should be. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the whole, the enclosed porch under the deck in addition to the proposed addition will all be included.
So you're saying that this would be, both would be, I lost my train of thought, excuse me. This both would be considered in this variance, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Yes, sir.
And so this one variance will
Separate?
take care of everything?
And will encompass both issues, yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Correct. And if you look at this side profile picture here, the deck does extend a little bit further out than the enclosed area underneath. So if you felt the need to approve the requested variance to enclose the upper portion and let them extend it out 4 feet, it would take care of this as well.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Tom? If not, thank you, Tom. If we could have the applicant come forward.
I'd like to make one mention on the second page of the staff report, under variance, it says the applicant is requesting a front yard setback and it should be rear. So, oversight on my part.
Thank you. All right. And if we could have the applicant forward, and if you could swear him in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Name and address, please.
Danny Dennis, 6904 Brown Court, Crestwood.
Thank you, sir. If you could tell us what you're trying to do.
My wife and I bought this property in October of last year. And as you've seen, the back of the house faces west and gets the full blast of the sun. We had decided before we bought the house that if we did buy the house, we would cover at least part of it to get some use of that deck and be able to be outside with it. As it is, it's hard to get anything. We can't use it in hot, sunny days. So that's the basis for the request. There's been mention of enclosing that. It's not going to be enclosed. We're just going to put a roof over part of that deck. I'm not good with, I can show you. There's not going to be an enclosure other than a roof.
So it'll just be a roof, the sides will be open?
The sides will be open. The contractor, one of the contractors, maybe both of them, said if I would go out, I could put a cover over the existing deck, just a roof over. But he said I can go 4 more feet with a beam and not have to put a brace. And you'll get more for your money if you'll go out another 4 feet. That's why we're asking for the 4 feet beyond the existing length, the width of the deck now. That's all we're trying to do. The sunroom, according to Debbie, I think was put in 2012 and 10 by the previous owner. Well, any question about variance or problem with that during the sale or the closing of the property, so just assumed that was okay. We bought it as is, the sunroom. We didn't do anything with it. It does not come out to the existing length of the deck. But in a nutshell, we're just trying to get use of the back part of the house and to cover that. And it will, I think, enhance that home and fits in well with the neighborhood. Most of those houses in that neighborhood have a deck. A lot of them have the same type structure, an open structure just for shade.
All right, any questions by members?
Yes, I have one. So is it my understanding that you will not be extending the deck, you're just putting the roof feature over and the existing deck remains as is?
The deck will go out that existing 4 feet to,
Follow
to
that
give
footprint
us-
of the roof line?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
and you'll have the 3 posts that go up for the end of the extension. But the deck will go an extra 4 feet out to the end of that.
You just said that you were going to bring the roof out, and then it led me to believe that maybe the deck wasn't following suit, so I just
That
want to make
part
sure I
of the
understand.
deck, I think there's a 15-foot width of that
Yes,
deck
sir.
that will go out 4 feet.
Thank you.
And yes, I think the house was built on the property line, the rear, in the beginning. It was put at the 25-foot setback. And it gets wider as you go north. It's at an angle, I think. So at the closest corner would be the 14 feet. And then it gets further away as you go north toward the road.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, sir. I have a question for staff. Tom, it is my understanding that, for example, he's proposing to cover the area. I'm not trying to say anything about outcome. I'm just saying an alternative that could have been done, which I'm not saying it should be, was they could have put a sunshade kind of thing where it could be put out or retracted, and that is an alternative. But this would be a more permanent, fit in more with the house kind of structure, but they could have put something that would retract.
Yes, without permits, you can do that. And then this application attaches to the permanent roof line, and so we consider that to be part of the body of the house.
Correct.
So that's why they're applying for the variance.
With that being said, then, Tom, I think I'll ask you, have we looked, has it been considered, are there any easements that are underground that may pose, that's something we haven't considered as far as through the application process? Is there a sewer, gas, water, phone line, or any of that stuff that has been looked at or considered? When we're talking about getting into easement space, sometimes there may be infrastructure underground.
Go back to that side view. I don't think they're extending any structures to support that. It looks like it's cantilevered. You can ask, maybe call the applicant back up to confirm that, but this graphic shows that they're cantilevering it. If they're putting additional posts, they may need to look at whether there are any underground utilities, but that would be their responsibility at the building permit application.
So we don't need to ask that question, or we should just determine whether there's structure.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
There you go.
it depicted posts. Go back one image, please, Tom. Right there. Oh, you're going awfully quick. So it's
There are
depicting 3
posts.
posts.
yeah, but they're, going back to the previous one, it doesn't show any easements. All the
Oh,
easements
yes.
are around the outside of the
But
property.
that would be depicted on this drawing then? Correct. Okay, because one of the things I'm trying to get out ahead of also is, if we're having this variance conversation, I don't want the homeowner to get into, they're gonna go and put potentially, foundation piers and then MSD comes through or something to that effect. But if you're saying that there's no easement or utilities or anything back there,
They should always call, Bud or whoever, whatever company is doing that to locate utilities before they put anything in the ground.
sure.
They have a gas and electric and telephone easement all across here.
And then on the
here's
other
your
side.
building line right through here.
Thank you for that, because I do know that sometimes they can go in the rear of the property lines, and I didn't want that to become an issue for the homeowners as well. Okay, thank you.
All right. Then, are there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Also seeing none. Sir, would you like to do any, you have the opposition, you have the ability to do any further comments if you'd like to, whether rebuttal, final statement, you're the only one left.
To clarify maybe a question you had, there is a sewer easement on the south side of the property, MSD, between this home and the existing home to the south. I don't know if it's a 5-foot easement or whatever, but it shows on there somewhere, doesn't it, Tom? And it's off the property there, so.
Yes, sir, thank you. I just, again, just from
Good-
past
good- good
experiences.
question, and-
I didn't want that to become a can of worms for you once you get over one hurdle, moving to the next or something to that
I
effect.
appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
We have called 811 and had utilities marked. When we bought the property, we had a survey done after we bought it, and I called 811 for that purpose to see where, and they're all on the other corner, water, electric, cable, phone.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any final questionings by the board? Staff? Applicant? All right, seeing none, then we'll close the floor and open it up for discussion among the board.
I think it's a good application, and I don't have any problems with it.
Yeah, the part of what I was asking about with what they could do, which would be better, in my opinion, what they're proposing would be much better than having something that would be temporary, that would go back and forth and those kind of things. Not that those aren't acceptable, but actually I prefer what they've proposed here. And I think it'd be more,
I do also.
better for the
It'll
community.
look a lot better,
Look a lot better.
absolutely.
I have a reservation, although I understand what the applicant is intent and would certainly enhance the enjoyability of their deck and their property. Because we have a vacant lot next door, no one has a voice that's here at this time with a structure that may pose a concern. And I don't know how, we don't have a crystal ball to look into the future. Because it's a sewer lot and not a septic lot, we know that one potential hurdle of, Tom made reference to the fact that, well, the lot's been vacant for some time, and I agree with that, but it's not due to unsuitable soils for septic system, therefore it can't be sold. Because it's on sewers, that lot has the propensity of being sold this afternoon, quite possibly. So the only reservation that I hold would be is for a future property owner or a builder, that we're only talking about the 7 plus the 11 being 18 feet from structure to structure. And all I'm looking at is what may occur down the road. But I understand the applicant's ideas and their desire to be able to enjoy all of their property and not a portion of it during seasons.
If I may, that property owner of the vacant lot was notified of this and had no objection to it, so they would be here if there was some concern. And we do have higher density developments around the county where we do have corner lots, and those corner lots are very similar to this, so I appreciate your concern, but there was notice given, so
Okay.
they had an opportunity to come here and speak if they had an objection.
All right, thank you.
And I would add to that, I think if there was a home there, yes, we would know what was there, but I don't think we should deprive current homeowners in the area of any things that we might consider just because the lot next to them happens to be empty.
I concur with that, and that's my only reservation, and I agree with that statement, because we have no idea what the future may hold, and it would be unfair to deprive these folks the opportunity to enjoy their property. But again, that's just the only reservation that I hold is what may happen. But in that case, whomever purchases the lot, once this is done, then they can make the decision how and where to place their home based on what they see, and they can move forward at that point.
Any other comments? Seeing no further comments, I'd be willing to accept a motion.
I would like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve docket OC 19-017 for a rear yard setback variance of 14 feet in order to modify an existing wood rear deck, and because it will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. It will not alter the essential character of the surrounding area. It will not be a hazard or nuisance to the public. It will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the regulations. Conditions of approval. The variance shall only apply to the application considered at the June 20, 2019 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing.
Mr. Riley, did you state what the evidence you, what was your point of, what was the evidence to make that motion? Based on the, did you say testimony of
Will it be
this?
Yeah, based upon the testimony.
Mr. Combs, is that specific enough, or does it need to be more
He's done
specific?
very well. He's the best reader of motions I've seen so far.
All right.
Thank you.
We have a motion. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please state aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Riley, could you read the next case?
Hold on just a moment.
I think he's gonna come up.
The applicant just raised his hand back up. I don't know if there's an opportunity for him to say something.
His question was whether or not this variance included the enclosed sunroom area, and I said, yes, it does include it. Yeah.
You ready for me to read it?
Yes.
Okay. An application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit and waiver for a detached accessory dwelling unit located at 4106 South Highway 53, Crestwood.
All right, Amy Alvey again. This is your third docket of the day. This is an application requesting a conditional use permit for a detached accessory dwelling unit before the construction of the primary residence on property located at 4106 South Highway 53. The mailing address is Crestwood, but I would consider this more in the Ballardsville area. Again, it's not within like the city limits of Crestwood. The property is zoned R2 residential. The proposed size of the tract is 10.02 acres. This is the current layout of the tract of land. The owner has applied for and received approval for a minor plat dated September 20th of 2018. And you'll see highlighted in blue in the attached minor plat, that is the proposed 10.2 acres. And then the owner is retaining the tract there in red. So you have an owner and then the applicant. So the applicant is the one applying for the conditional use permit and waiver today. There is also a shared driveway there that has been approved by Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. So again, this is just a zoomed in version of that. So you'll see the proposed tract is the one highlighted there in blue. This shows the existing zoning of R2. There is a touch of CO1, the top little corner there. There have been no prior actions regarding this property before the Oldham County Board of Adjustments. This is standing in the driveway looking across the street. So this is the east view. This is a large tract of land here. This is the north view. So this is on looking at 53 going back towards LaGrange. This is the south view, looking towards 53 going into Ballardsville area. This is the home that is on the residual tract of land that was highlighted in red. You'll see on the little area map there, I have a little star with that approximate location of the house, of the existing houses. This is the driveway area here. So they have, the residual tract has a existing accessory structure and little shed here in the back. So that you come in the driveway, go to the back of the house, or you can loop around here to go to the accessory structures. Or when you come in, you'll take, this will be the access drive that goes back to the proposed tract of land. So again, this just shows the shared driveway. This property also backs up to Brittany Lane subdivision, Brittany Woods. I think that's the name of it. So this is looking from Brittany Lane. So all of our views previously were from Highway 53. So this is on the back side of the property, again, on Brittany Lane. So if you look at your little area map there, that little star, that's the area that I'm looking into from Brittany Lane. And this is just down a little bit further to kind of give you orientation of what the lane looks like from Brittany Lane, since it would be visible from that side as well. So this is what we'll consider the west adjoiner. Again, the property subject or applicant's property is highlighted there in red. So highlighted in blue is this tract of land, and where the star is the home that is shown in the picture there. These are the properties that are located across the street on Brittany Lane from, we'll call it the pole portion of the property. This is exiting Brittany Lane, so the property, all of this property here is the applicant's. So again, excuse me, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for the construction of an accessory structure to be used as a detached accessory dwelling unit prior to the construction of the primary residence. Section 250.030, accessory uses and structures with and without dwelling unit states, no accessory structure, accessory use or structure may be developed until after the start of the construction of the principal use of the building site, and no accessory use or structure may be used unless the principal use or structure has been developed, except after the review and approval of a conditional use permit. So it's kind of twofold. They want to have an accessory structure before the primary, and they want that accessory structure also to be an accessory dwelling unit. Excuse me. The ADU has approximately 1,200 square feet used for living space on the second floor. The first floor will be used as garage space and storage. Section 250.030, accessory uses and structures without dwelling units, item B, states number of accessory structures states that 2 accessory structures with no maximum floor area are permitted on parcels of 5 acres or larger. So the portion that will be not used for living space, there's no cap on this on the accessory structure size if you have 5.01 acres or larger. So they're fine on that part of it. Section 250.040, item E5, states that detached accessory dwelling units shall not exceed 25% of the primary structure's square footage. The plans that were submitted for the primary home on the property is approximately 8,000 square feet. So the total allowable ADU space would be 2,000 square feet. So this is where all that information came from regarding accessory dwelling units. So they have met all of these items here without, obviously they're here for the conditional use and then the waiver to have it allowed before the construction of the primary. So again, detached accessory dwelling units, they have to have a conditional use permit. The property is zoned appropriately. You have to have twice the density, so this property is served by septic. They'd have to have a minimum of 2 acres, and the applicant is proposing to purchase 10.2. Setbacks will be verified at the time of building permit, but the existing width of the lot, of the area where it's going to go, there's adequate room there, but staff would verify that they are meeting the setbacks at time of building permit. And they are not asking for a variance on the accessory dwelling unit living space area. They're proposing 1,200 square feet, and the allowable based off the primary structure plans would be 2,000. And it will be at least 5 feet from the primary. It will not exceed the height of the primary, and it won't be located in front of the primary, the proposed location. So this is the site plan that was provided from the applicant. Again, this is Highway 53. This is Brittany Lane. So that first picture on Brittany Lane where it looked into the fenced area, that's where the accessory dwelling unit would be located. And then this is the location of the primary home. This kind of gives you a little bit of a bearings of where that would go.
The scale on that is not even close,
No, I took that off of the applicant's drawings.
because these look like they're 5 times as big as they will be.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. This is the drawings that were submitted with the proposed attached ADU. This is the floor plan that shows the first floor and the second floor. So you'll see the first floor is a two-car garage with storage, and then the second floor is, it does have 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a great room as well.
So what's the 40 and 50? Are those feet?
I questioned that from the applicant because that would be 2,000 square feet.
Correct.
But you may ask for clarification from the applicant, but I will tell you that he told me the actual dimensions of the building will be 30 by 40, which would be the 1,200 square feet. But you probably need to have that on record from the applicant, that it's going to be 30 by 40 and not 40 by 50. The applicant is requesting to build the ADU for his father-in-law to reside in, who has health issues, and in the past it would allow them to look after him, but not under the same roof. The proposed accessory dwelling unit would be designed and constructed to match the future home, and those plans have been provided, and has completed a preliminary site evaluation for a septic system for 10 bedrooms. The property is under contract to be purchased by the applicant contingent upon the approval of this ADU. So I have received documentation from the health department, and I've actually spoke with Charlie that they've gone out and done the septic inspections and everything, and have given the applicant, you know, how many tanks and the length of the lines, and it all fits on there. It would be one system that would be sized for 10 bedrooms. So this is the proposed home. It's an 8,000 square foot home with 8 bedrooms. This is hard to read, but you do have those copies in there. But it just shows this is the main level, the upper level, and then the lower level. The applicant has stated that they plan to build the primary home on the property in the next 3 to 5 years once they finish getting their current home ready to sell. The applicant's justification states that by allowing the construction of the ADU prior to the construction of the primary resident, it will allow the applicant time to prepare their current home to sell and allow his father-in-law to live on the same property for oversight and care and to be with his 7 grandchildren. So in summary, the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to allow a 1,200 square foot detached accessory dwelling unit to be constructed on the property before the construction of the primary structure. There's a lot of information. Be happy to answer any questions.
I guess, can we go back to, so they currently live, no, they do not live on this property at all?
Correct. They have a contract to purchase the property, the 10.2 acres, contingent upon the approval of this plan. And again, this is not to scale. I just
Right.
drew the same that was on here and cut and pasted on here.
Amy, will there be any ingress or egress off of Brittany Lane?
No, sir. It will all be from Highway 53.
Thank you.
Amy, is the septic system required to be connected together? Are you saying that they're going to connect them?
You can ask for clarification of that from the applicant, but I believe it will be one system. With accessory dwelling units, we require the utilities to not be separated. So if they wanted to have separate utilities, then they apply for a waiver of that, unless it's deemed necessary by the serving utility agency. So if LG&E or KU says that, you know, we're going to set a pole here and you're going to have a separate meter, or, you know, the water company or whoever, the water company decides if they're requiring them to be separate. The reason we put that in there is because in the event that this ADU is used for a non-family member or they start renting it out, you're more inclined to know what's going on in that accessory dwelling unit and the intensity of the use of it if there's one utility bill.
So how do we build a structure before an 8,000 square foot structure and keep the utilities together? Because the ADU is gonna be built ahead of time, therefore it's gonna have its own service, its own electric meter and all that stuff.
Correct.
Then when you build an 8,000 square foot home, I guess I need to ask the applicant that question perhaps, is then are they gonna disconnect the ADU and put a 400 amp service in and then feed?
I'm not sure. You would
Sure.
have me probably
But
ask
you
the
understand
app-
where I'm going with that, is
absolutely.
it only makes sense that you'd have 2 meters on it. What you're saying is it's not to be done.
Unless the
Unless-
utility company deems that that's the better way for it to be done.
So if the utility
Which we
company
have seen
deems
that
it,
in the past.
then do they come back before us to get a variance?
No, because it says in our regulations, if the utility
Dictated
company.
by.
Yes.
Okay.
It's dictated by them. But the applicant can let you, or explain to you on the septic of what they're gonna install at what phase.
In your time here, have you heard of anything like this where an ADU is planned on being built and it would be 3 to 5 years before the primary structure? Because in my time, I do not remember that ever being.
We have not had a case that has been extended that long. We have done 2 years. We did one on Camden Lane that gave someone, they built the accessory dwelling unit and lived in it while they were building their primary structure.
Right.
We've had that. That's the only one that I'm aware of
Extended one as well.
that we did
Right.
the ADU prior to the construction of the primary home. We had one that was the reverse on Highway 393. They basically permitted the garage area as a single-family home, and then a few years later, they came in and wanted to pull another single-family home. So then we had to turn around and make that garage area the accessory dwelling unit and then permit the single-family.
Correct.
But that was all still under construction. But historically, we have not even
2 years the llongest.
yeah, to even just a regular accessory structure, we have ones that have come in that have not had living space in it, and I'm not aware, that I can recall off the top of my head, that we've allowed it to go longer than 2 years. That's usually to pull a building permit, to apply for a building permit, not completed construction of the primary, but to pull a permit, so.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? All right. If not, we could have the applicant come forward. Anyone going to speak with you, they can come at the same time if you're going to have anybody else speak. Okay?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And state your name,
Lee Salyer, Robert Lee Salyer III.
address.
My primary address or this address?
Your address.
4605 Wolf Spring Drive, Louisville, Kentucky, 40241.
36051.
Wolf Spring Drive.
All right, if you could tell us what you're trying to accomplish?
So instead of breaking the property up, it's 10.02 acres, as you said. Instead of subdividing it, my father-in-law have a piece, and us having the main piece, we wanted to have it all together because it's eventually gonna be together anyway. So my father-in-law has been sickly, which is the reason why he's not here today. He was gonna come. As you said a minute ago, it's not to scale. That's me. I was trying to get this piece together real quickly. Because my builder had talked about, you'd asked about the utilities. My builder had said that the utilities can be put on the accessory dwelling unit because we're wanting that built first, and then they can move them to the main structure or have a pole to where it can be read in a common area on the property. We're asking for this accessory dwelling unit to be built first because of a couple different things. Us getting the main house prepared to sell, in addition, taking care of other financial arrangements for the main property as well. And as far as the living space, it's not on there as 40 by 50. The only reason I went to the higher side of it is because my father didn't know how big of a garage he wanted underneath there. He didn't know if he wanted the 2 larger doors underneath the whole property or if he wanted a 30 by 40. So, but the only living space in there that he would be finishing would be 1,200 square foot. The remaining piece of that would be storage, unfinished.
Okay, so I'm not sure I follow. So you're saying the building could be bigger? But
No, no bigger than what Amy already pointed out. It'd be smaller, if anything. 40 by 50 is the largest that's on there, which I went with that size because he didn't know if he wanted to be 30 by 40 or 40 by 50. Simply for the fact of storing the boat and additional items underneath the house.
The application before us right now is stating it as 1,200 square feet.
Correct. And you pointed out earlier that 40 by 50 is clearly 2,000 square foot.
Correct.
Okay, so the additional 800 square foot would be unfinished in that property there and used as just utility room, unfinished, on the second floor. And the under part would be garage.
So I think what he's saying is that if he builds a 40 by 50, the upstairs portion would, this area would only be used for the living space. This would be just additional storage of the garage, similar to what's below. I'm sorry, I did that backwards. So he's only asking for 1,200 square feet of the 2,000 that is in the second floor to be used as accessory dwelling unit space.
Right now,
Other would be
he's got like a 1,400 square foot house, and he doesn't want that big. It's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. He's trying to go smaller.
So then if the, Amy, I'm sorry, so on this question then, but they could build a much larger building even than even than 40 by 50.
Correct. There's no size limitation on accessory structures on properties 5.01 acres or larger. So he could build a 60 by 40.
Right.
If that's what he wanted. But he would still be only limited to 2,000 square feet of ADU space based off the home.
So the application before us would state that the finished ADU space would be no larger than 1,200.
Based off his testimony, correct.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry. So continue on. I asked questions.
And the reason, like I said, for the additional structure to be built 3 to 5 years later is to take care of other financial arrangements and the selling of the primary residence that we currently have now. And then that's it.
I'm not asking you to present testimony in this public forum that would at all disclose your personal finances.
Sure.
However, when we go to build ADUs, and we expect there to be a primary residence, so in the way you stated what you just stated, it makes me concerned whether or not the primary would ever get done if it's other questions of finances to get done. So I'm asking as a point of assurance, if we approve an ADU, we want an assurance that a primary is going to be built within a specified time.
Yes.
So that's my first question. My second question to you is this. We have extended the building or the pulling of a permit within typically 12 months is what we would typically do on a board like this. Extended, as you heard under Amy when I asked her the question, about 2 years was the longest we had done. So for you to go 3 to 5 years would be a new area for us to go much longer than we've ever gone in the past. So I need you to help me understand the justification for those two questions.
All right. So the structure will be built more than likely within the 3-year period that we're shooting for. I've got 2.5 more years left in my bankruptcy is the reason why it's 3 to 5 years. Okay. So once that's done, I'll be able to build the main structure. My final, I mean, I could have gotten the property and subdivided it and just did 3 to 5 acres for my father-in-law and kept the other part for mine and not even be here, but we want it all together. So I'm just trying to do it right by Oldham County and everybody together. So yes, the structure will more than likely be built within the 3-year period. My wife wants it built yesterday. So that's where we are with it. Any other questions?
Anything else you want to say in terms of your primary testimony?
I don't think so.
Questions by the board?
Yes, sir, I do. You're stating that you want to build the ADU for your father-in-law to live in.
Correct.
So that you all can render and assist in his care.
Yes.
So who's going to live in this in the first 3 to 5 years while you're sorting out building the primary structure?
My father-in-law and my daughter who goes to college. That's why there's 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
So my father-in-law will be there. We're in the process of selling his house right now, which will sell quickly. And then if approved and we finished our due diligence and closed on the lot, we'll probably start the process of building the accessory dwelling unit within probably 3 to 5 months to actually start the building of it. My builder called me yesterday asking where we were, and I said, I've got the hearing today. So
Well, that helps me wrap my mind around it, because, you know, if the idea is the primary structure is gonna have caregivers in it for the ADU, which would be your father-in-law, but you've clarified that, and that's where I was going with that, is, you know, if he's there by himself for 3 to 5 years, it kind of defeats the purpose. But if you have a family member that is rendering assistance to him, then that helps me understand that.
right, yeah, my daughter's 19. So my father-in-law right now lives off of Dixie Highway. So, and we live just outside of Prospect, so it's about 18 to 20 miles away. It's not much difference between my house and here, a couple miles, but she'll be with him going to college.
That makes sense to me. I was just trying to make sure I could wrap my mind around it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Amy, I have a question for you. If you could stay here, I would appreciate it. So, per his testimony, he was saying we could have split it and made this as a primary. So given the plans that are submitted before us, with the second floor being the additional space and this kind of thing, to help me, then would the plans as proposed be acceptable if this had been split off and this would have been just a primary residence on a 4 or 5 acre slot?
Yeah, they could have done that. They could have just come in with another minor plat to carve off, because there's no road frontage requirements in R2. He'd have to be on a minimum of 1 acre lot. And that would have been permitted as the single-family structure for that tract of land. And then the existing driveway would be put into driveway or access easement as it is now.
Okay.
Amy, I've got a question for you then. If the primary landowner, his name is Perkins, they're selling off a portion of their land.
Correct.
So then once you do that, isn't there a limited time frame as to when you could sell off and parcel another portion? So if
Create 2 additional tracts every 5 years. So this would,
this would be one, this is one of
One.
2 within a 5-year time frame. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
So this could have been accomplished just in a different way. So by doing it this way, it's no different than what it could have done, and it just had, okay.
correct.
It's all going to be underneath one mortgage eventually. It's all going to be underneath one utility, as long as the utility company has no problem, you know, with the one main meter, as you said a minute ago, one water meter, and all that stuff. The only thing would be 2 of would be TV services, because he likes cable, I like satellite. So that's it. You know what I mean?
Okay. Additional questions?
Yes, when do you anticipate that the ADU will be constructed, will be done?
I mean, it's not a big structure, so it shouldn't take no more than 6 months to build, I wouldn't think. My builder, which is David Bone at Four Seasons Homes, seems to think that, you know, it wouldn't take any more than 6 months to build it from start.
To build an ADU, correct? Okay. And your anticipation in starting this project the fourth quarter of this year?
That's the plan, yes. Like I said, we're already, you know, ready to go. We're just selling his $150,000 house right now, which is going to go with no problems.
All right. Anything further? All right, thank you, sir. Do we have anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Do we have anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Ma'am, if you could come forward. Would you be sworn in?
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? State your name and address.
Tina Carter, 4517 Brittany Lane.
I'm sorry, I could not
I
hear.
know, I'm nervous.
You have enough?
4517
Okay.
Brittany Lane.
And your name again?
Tina Carter.
Okay.
I live right off Brittany Lane to where it's right on the corner.
Okay,
Yes,
hold on
put
just a
that up.
second. We'll let Amy put that up there, and you can explain which parcel it is you're talking about.
I'm right here. See on the corner?
This one?
Yes, on the corner. And Mr. Perkins had come to me several times asking to buy 20 feet off of Brittany to put a driveway for this. And I said no. And it's been several times he's come, and even buyers have come to my house asking why I wouldn't sell that part. It's because it's all fenced in, and I have the wildlife that come in there and stuff. And then what I'm asking is, why is there two residency? And if something happens to the father-in-law, then do they sell the other one? You know, or do they rent it out? You know, what becomes of that? And then we're in Brittany Woods Farms. Does the other people, like our tracts, we can't sell on the master deed. You know, you can't split up the tracts into two tracts and have another house there. Can the neighbors in Brittany Woods Farms split up their tracts and start selling off? If this is connected to Brittany Woods Farms, is what I'm asking.
Yours is a platted subdivision, so you have deed restrictions for the platted lots in yours. This tract of land is not part of your subdivision,
Okay,
which is not
right.
subject to your deed restrictions.
Okay,
So if
right.
you wanted to change your deed restrictions that says that you have minimum of 5 acres and you want to sell a tract off, you would have to have your deed restrictions changed.
Okay.
This property is not subject to your deed restriction. It just abuts it, but it's not subject to your deed restrictions.
Okay.
Okay, so can we clarify, I thought you, when you touched it, that you were saying your property is across the street, but you're saying it's actually 4501?
4517.
Right here.
So that you were requested to sell
4517.
something, it doesn't make sense he would want to buy
You have to
anything
be
from you
sworn in
across the
first.
street.
You have to be sworn in before he
If
gives
you,
any
if you want to
testimony.
testify, it's fine,
see.
it's just
Let
you
me
have
get-
to be sworn in.
Let me get a
Okay,
bigger
so-
picture
Show
here.
my house.
Come on up.
Oh, well, you don't have my house, right?
So, ma'am, it's all right that he comes up with you, okay? Because you can be
Do
separate.
you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Your name?
John Mahan.
John what?
Mahan,
Mahan?
Address, please.
4517 Brittany Lane. And her property is right here.
This piece. Okay, so let's see.
Comes
And
in,
right, like she said about the wildlife, right,
So hold on a second, so we can see where, so we
So
get
your
clarity,
property is
where we're
down
at,
here.
and then we'll go.
So your property's on the same side of the road as this tract?
yes, the
Okay.
tract adjoins to us.
Can you see it right here? The bottom? The
Yes,
bottom,
yes,
right
that's
here.
it.
This
Well,
area
go on
where
that
they're
corner
putting the
where Brittany-
ADU,
See
there's a
where
little
Brittany
creek
lies?
that runs
Creek.
through there. It's an underground stream, and that wildlife go through there. The deer are abundant in that area.
It's supposedly a
And
cave.
with the destruction of the woods, then the deers are gonna go, and all the wildlife. But, yeah, I just wanted to clarify where her address actually was.
I just don't understand why two buildings. I understand why one housing, but not two.
If you look under our rules and regulations, what he's asking for is not outside of what our rules and regulations allow, okay? And in terms of, I think Amy already answered about deed restrictions, that has no bearing on this property, even though it's next to it, it's not part of it. So number one, the deed restrictions are not relevant to this case. The second part is in his within the regulations, there is a provision that allows us to do these things, as you've seen in Amy's presentation. So we would be within our allowing to do this, and as part of what we would do, but there are restrictions and things that we could apply to. I understand that there's wildlife that you like to see, but wildlife that you like to see on someone else's property is not your right, if I may say it that way. Is that an appropriate way to say it, Amy?
Well, it changes the subdivision. When you take out all the woods, then it changes the whole, that.
Would this
it-
affect
the
Brittany
look.
Woods Farms, though, on value?
With the
and-
adjoining of the wildlife sanctuary part.
Considerations can be made if it's not inconsistent with the area, if it was not allowable. See, we have what we call, because this is R2 district, and there's permitted uses and intentions and conditional uses, and this is the purpose of R2 residential districts to allow, preserve, and protect the character of the low-density, detached, single-family areas and neighborhoods as densities. But this is all within the rights of the designation of the R2 designation that this property is under.
Well, with the
You got something
layout,
to add to that?
Please don't.
You're trying to make a defense of something, let them finish their testimony.
With the layout, the position of the AD, the
ADU.
the ADU lands that right around where that creek is, that little stream right there.
Yeah.
And again,
If you can go
this
to-
is not to scale,
Oh, well,
Okay.
just
so
to,
keep that in mind
Yeah,
as well.
well, I can't see where it's gonna be actually. All I know is in the wooded area, adjoining to our property is where that stream is. So I didn't wanna disrupt
I just
the
wanted to
flow of the water, you
make
know?
it clear that he does not bring that off Brittany Lane. That house, that, and later on, down the road. the
No
setback.
access road from Brittany. That's what we're opposed.
Question is could he put in an access
They
into Brittany?
The property doesn't abut Brittany Lane, so they would have to get access from an adjoining property owner, either purchase a part of it, you know, to get, it has to be at least 40 foot wide that they would have to get to that. You can put a binding element or a condition of approval that the proposed track will not have access to Brittany Lane, if that satisfies their needs and the applicant agrees to that.
Yep. And I've talked to all the neighbors around there. So,
But
and
we
they're
just
opposed
don't,
to it.
we just don't see why he has to have 10 bedrooms for one
No,
gentleman.
no, it's not.
Okay, well, that's-
So, that's it.
Okay, any other testimony? All right, hold on one second. Questions by the board? All right, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Now it's time for rebuttals. As the applicant, you have the right to speak in rebut to the opposition.
So in regards to the reason why I need 10 bedrooms, if you heard earlier, I have 7 kids.
Sir, you're addressing the board at this
Sorry,
point in time?
I've got 7 kids,
Okay,
all right? Plus my wife and I, my father-in-law, and the guest bedroom. Okay. Second of all, my house and the structure would do nothing but probably add value to the property, not take away. Like it's not to scale. There's another view of it where it shows the lot and it shows the tree line there. Go back to this one second. Right there. So the accessory dwelling unit is going to be more towards the left of the tree. And I was talking to Doug a second ago. That spring that they're referring to goes down the right side of that property, more towards the property line of where the buses normally park, which is the one over there at 4200. Okay. We have no intention of going off Brittany Lane. I don't want a driveway there. It's never been in the thought process. Doug had tried to get it at one point in time, but that's not me. So that's all I was clarifying.
so, I'm sorry, you referred to Doug. Is Doug the current property owner?
Yes, Doug's the current property owner,
Okay,
Doug
just
Perkins.
for clarity. All right, so hold on a second. Is that your finish your testimony? Hold on. Questions by the board?
Good.
Okay, rebuttal of the opposition. Anyone speaking in opposition has a chance to rebut what's been said. Wish to speak? Nope, okay. Final statements by the opposition, assuming, okay? Final statements by the applicant. Okay? Board members, do you have any questions you wish to ask of anyone before we close the floor? All right. At this point, then, I'll close the floor and open it up for discussion amongst the board.
Mr. Chairman, the only difficulty I have is the time frame of building the main structure, the 3 to 5 years. I think we need some discussion on that. And I understand exactly what the applicant has said. But the original rules that state in our rule book states that you're supposed to build a primary structure first then build a ADU, and we have allowed variances for this, or CCUPs to do waivers for this in the past. But I'm struggling with the 3 to 5 years.
Mr. Riley, I also struggled with that question, and when it came up within here. I think what has changed the discussion for me, though, is when we had the testimony by Ms. Alvey that they could have built the structure as they're proposing. They could have made it the primary if they had split off the property, and they could have made it into 2 separate properties. Mr. Funk, you asked the question of could they have done that? Was that allowed? And they said, yes, it is. So they could have done it, accomplished exactly what they're trying to accomplish by doing it a different manner, but that's not their long-term goal. So they would have had to split it off, then build another residence, then they could have merged the 2 properties back together, which would have been another set of processes. Whereas I think actually this gives it a more clarity. So while I'm not in the 3 to 5 year period, I understand exactly, because that was my concern. I think what I'm saying is that I believe that this could have been accomplished, and if we turn this down, frankly, they could go and do that and still do everything they're planning on doing. And so by us denying the application, they could go and step in and do exactly what they want to do, just do it a different way. So by denying the application, I don't think we accomplish anything but asking them to do it in a different manner at a more costly point. Mr. Urban?
This may complicate things, but it's not meant to complicate things. There's another option. This could be considered a single-family house and get a building permit, and that's that. We've had only one case. We've had 2 cases, one where they did just this, and then they had to come back to get the real. You already did. Okay, I'm sorry. But I want to point that out again, that,
Yes.
there's another option. So you really have 2 potential options. This is the cleaner version, and doing it this way, if you would consider it. And I understand this issue of when will the primary structure be built. You could potentially say it should be built within 2 years or 3 years, and ask them to come back if that changes. So if it goes from 3 to 5, we could put in our system that we check this in whatever time frame. It's a little harder for us to do, but you could do that. If you had a comfort level with saying, okay, let's check this in 3 years to make sure it's still moving forward, and they come back as just other business, and make a testimony on when they anticipate building the house, if it's going to be further than 3 years, or if it's not already under construction. It's another possibility as a binding element.
Mr. Chairman, there will be 2 motions that will be made. One will be the CUP and one will be waiver of regulations. But I think on the waiver of regulations, there should be a date set in there, not for construction, but for the certificate of occupancy. And I think it should be a shorter time period. However, if the applicant runs out of time, the applicant can always come back in on that and get an extension. That's one way to handle it.
I think that, given the fact that Amy Alvey gave us the clarification that the current property owner, Mr. Perkins, has done 1 division and still has the right to do a second, going back to what you said, Rob, is although they're here requesting it, they didn't have to be. As we're looking at this, to your point, they could go the other route, just divide off the other parcel and move forward, and then do 2 single-family building permits, from what I just heard Jim Urban say. I feel for the family that spoke in opposition. I oftentimes enjoy views as I drive throughout our beautiful county, but I don't own those views, and I know that that's very difficult, and I feel for those folks, but it's a challenge to enjoy something that we don't own, to have a deciding factor on what were to occur with that property. In light of the fact that this land is not inclusive of that deeded subdivision, I think that this land has no bearing as to what occurs within the deeded subdivision, although they share a common property line. And it's difficult because, you know, we've all enjoyed wonderful things in our lives, but especially within this county, we have the picturesque views. And I understand with the families sharing their concern, but I tend to be inclined to be in favor of this, to pass it through in light of the fact that they could have gone the other steps and took it right through without question.
Concur. I also concur with your comments about the opposition. I understand that. Once, you know, if you enjoy a view and you'd like it to stay there, I understand the desire. Any further discussion? If not, I'd be willing to accept a motion.
I would like to try a motion. Motion to approve docket OC-19-018 for a conditional use permit to construct a detached accessory dwelling unit of 1,200 square feet of living space for the applicant's father-in-law who has had health issues. This motion is made because it will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare, the character and the objectives of the proposed use, and the potential impacts on the community and its surroundings are appropriate. Conditions of approval. The conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at the June 20, 2019 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. That's one motion.
On this one.
Oh, conditions, I already said that.
Yep.
That's one motion.
Any discussion on the motion? Or wait,
Wait, don't you have some other conditions that you want to put in there with regard
I
to
think he's gonna
construction?
attach that to the waiver to allow it before the primary.
Yes.
right. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion with a second. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's carried. Willing to accept a second motion?
Second motion to approve docket OC 19018 for a waiver of regulation, section 250-030 of the Oldham County Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance in order to build a detached accessory dwelling unit prior to construction of the primary structure, because the applicant's father-in-law, who has had health issues, will be locating to this parcel and residing in the ADU before the primary structure is started. Applicant is in need of additional time to prepare his home for sale. Will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Will not allow unreasonable circumvention of requirements of the zoning regulations. Conditions of approval. The waiver of regulations shall only apply to the application considered in the June 20, 2019 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. A certificate of occupancy for the primary structure must be issued on or before July the 1st, 2022.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Typically, we don't do C of O, I get your point, but, you know, in a house of this size, it's hard to go all the way through construction. A better trigger is a building permit. CO is, you know, some houses take 6 months to build, some take a year to build. And then they, of course, have to go through all the inspections and everything.
I guess it's dependent on what we're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to say
Yes.
you really want it to be done,
That's what I'm trying to say.
that's what you're putting in
Right.
there that way
I'm putting their
on purpose.
feet to the fire a little
And
bit,
that's
so to
okay.
speak.
Yeah.
It's just,
It's different.
yeah, it's different.
Discussion?
Was the motion already seconded?
Yes.
I would be inclined to make it more predicated on securing the building permit, based on what Jim Urban said. Just in light of the circumstances, for example, looking at the weather patterns that we've had over the last 18 months, with the exorbitant amount of rainfall that we've had, I think that a completion time is a trifle challenging. I would be more inclined to want to attach it to the securing the building permit due to things that are beyond the potential client's control of, shortages of materials, weather, manpower, and things of that nature. To Jim's point, inspection delays and things of that nature, I'd be more inclined to want to put the stipulation of securing the building permit by a certain date and then letting those folks work their way through of the construction time. But that's just my observation based on what we see going on.
But a building permit, once applied for, how long is it good for?
A year.
So it's good for a year. Okay, so based on prior testimony of the applicant, he said that he had 2.5 years to complete what he has as a financial restriction that would need to be done. So if we put it out there for 3 years, he would only have 6 months to get everything approved and built in that 6-month period, which is probably not necessarily reasonable in this case.
To construct a house.
So I would be inclined to agree with Mr. Funk that maybe we should change that if you're so inclined to amend.
I'm inclined to do that.
Well, or
How do we
Mr.
do
Riley,
that? How do we input the
You have
put?
to do amendment to your main motion.
or predicated on C of O in 4 years, because then it fits closer in that time frame and allows for issues like weather or whatever. You know, building permit being good for a year, now you're still accomplishing the same thing, I think. But if you're more comfortable with the C of O, then make it in, just change the year,
Yeah,
add 1 additional year.
yeah.
At 2.5 years, then it gives them 18 months to construct a house instead of 3 years.
Yeah.
Still
So,
have to amend your motion, though,
Right.
before you vote on the main motion.
so we're saying, Jim, to be 2023?
If you want to stick with the C of O,
think I
I would
would
add a
like to.
year, yes.
Same
Yeah.
difference.
If you want to go with a building permit, then you could just change it from a C of O to a building permit.
I like to stay with the certificate of occupancy.
That's fine.
Okay, so you would be making a motion to amend your prior motion,
Now, who seconded the,
Mr. Funk? Or, yeah.
if you're in agreement with that, we'll make an amendment to that. I am. Draw your motion, we start over again, but okay with going with the amendment?
Yes, sir.
Make your amendment.
Okay, I'd like to make the amendment to my motion for the certificate of occupancy for the primary structure must be issued on or before July the 1st, 2023.
We have an amendment. Do we have a second?
A second.
We have a second.
Vote on the amendment.
So first we'll take we'll take a voice vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment as stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries to amend the original motion. Now we have an original motion. Any additional discussion on the motion as amended?
I asked the applicant, and they're in agreement with that binding element. I'm sorry, condition of approval, sorry.
Go ahead and ask him if he's in agreement with it. What you should do is ask him if he's in agreement with the motion as is before the court, before the board now.
So
Or accepting of the,
do we have to open the floor to do that?
no, I think it's part of it, it's part of the, you don't have to reopen it, but you can ask him if he wants to question it or object to it, he can, then we reopen and take some testimony.
Could the applicant come forward, please? Are you okay with are you all right with what the motion as amended?
Yeah, so it's basically stating that I would have to occupy or have the house completely finished by July
1st, 2023.
We were planning on being there between 3 to 5 years anyway, so that,
Just say yes or no.
yes.
Thank you. All right, any additional discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I would be willing to accept a motion for a 5-minute recess.
I'd like to make a motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second?
We have a motion, a second for a 5-minute recess. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? We'll take a 5-minute recess. Mic's off, please.
Yes, Cindy, this is Travis Combs, just returned your